Let me tell you something that might disturb you. The difference between rich and poor people is not hard work. It's not intelligence. And it's definitely not luck. The real difference is something invisible, something silent, something rich people understand early, and poor people never see, even after a lifetime of struggle. In the same city, two men wake up every morning. One rushes to work, exhausted before the day even begins. He trades his time for money, hoping one day he'll finally be free. The other man wakes up calmly, no stress, no urgency, and yet money flows into his account while he sleeps. This makes no sense at first. How can someone earn more by doing less? Is it unfair, or is it something deeper? Something hidden beneath the surface that nobody talks about openly? This is the story of a young man named Daniel. He was 23 years old, broke, confused, and quietly afraid of his future. His wallet was empty, but his mind was full of questions. Every night he asked himself the same thing: why do some people escape this life that while others stay trapped forever? Daniel worked as a security guard outside a luxury office building. Every day he watched wealthy people walk past him. Expensive cars, calm faces, confident movements, but it wasn't their money that shocked him, it was their peace. They looked like they knew something, something he didn't. One evening, a quiet businessman stopped in front of him. The man looked ordinary, no flashy clothes, no arrogance, just calm, controlled energy. He asked Daniel for directions. Daniel helped him, and then Daniel asked a question. He said, "Sir, how do people become like you?" The man didn't answer immediately. He simply looked at Daniel and smiled. Then he said something Daniel would never forget. He said, "Rich people don't work for money. They build things that make money work for them." That sentence hit Daniel like lightning. He didn't fully understand it, but he could feel its power. That night, he couldn't sleep. His mind replayed those words again and again. Make money work for you. What did that even mean? For the first time in his life, Daniel realized something terrifying. Maybe he had been taught the wrong rules. Maybe everything he believed about money was incomplete. He began observing wealthy people more closely. They didn't panic about small expenses. They didn't rush for overtime. They didn't chase money desperately. Instead, they made calm decisions, strategic decisions. Daniel noticed something else. Poor people focused on earning more money. Rich people focused on owning things that produced money. Assets, systems, businesses, things that worked even when they didn't. This realization shook him because Daniel understood something painful. His job could only pay him when he was present. His income was trapped by his time, and time was limited. That night, sitting alone in his small room, Daniel made a silent decision. He would stop living blindly. He would stop following the path everyone else followed without questioning it. He bought a small notebook. On the first page, he wrote one sentence: "What do rich people know that I don't?" That question became his obsession, because deep inside, Daniel knew the answer could change his life. But he had no idea. This would lead him into a world most never discover. The next morning, Daniel woke up differently. Nothing around him had changed. The same small room, the same empty wallet, the same uncertain future. But inside his mind, something had shifted. For the first time, he stopped asking, "How can I earn more money?" Instead, he asked a far more dangerous question: how do I stop needing to work for money at all? That question followed him everywhere. At work, he watched people rush in and out of the building. Employees walked fast, stressed, checking their watches. But the owners, they walked slowly, calm, in control. They weren't being chased by time. Time was being controlled by them. And Daniel realized ownership changes everything. That evening, Daniel didn't go home immediately. He sat on a bench outside the building, watching the lights in the offices above him. Hundreds of people were still working late, giving their energy, giving their lives. And suddenly, Daniel understood something painful. Most people don't own their time. They rent their life, hour by hour. Daniel went home and opened his old phone. He started searching. How do rich people make money? The answers confused him at first. Words like assets, equity, investments, leverage, it felt like a different language, a language nobody had taught him before, and he wondered, why had nobody ever explained this in school? Days turned into weeks. Daniel began studying quietly. While others watched entertainment, he watched interviews of wealthy entrepreneurs. While others complained about their jobs, he studied how businesses were built. And slowly, patterns began to appear. Rich people didn't sell their time. They built things once and got paid again and again. A business, a product, an investment, something that continued working long after the initial effort was done. It was like planting a tree instead of picking fruit one by one forever. This realization excited him, but it also scared him because it meant his entire life had been built on a fragile foundation. If he stopped working, his income stopped. He wasn't building freedom, he was building dependence. One night, Daniel looked at his reflection in the mirror. He asked himself a hard question. If I continue like this, where will I be in 10 years? The answer terrified him. Same job, same stress, same limitations. That vision became unbearable. From that moment, Daniel made a quiet promise. He would no longer live reactively, he would live strategically. Every decision from now on would be based on building ownership, not just survival. He began saving small amounts of money. It wasn't much. Sometimes it felt pointless. But Daniel understood something most people ignore. Wealth doesn't begin with money. It begins with discipline. Discipline creates control, and control creates options. Then something unexpected happened. Daniel began noticing opportunities he had never seen before. Small business ideas, gaps in the market. These opportunities had always been there, but his mind had never been trained to see them. This was the second secret rich people understand. Opportunities are invisible until your mind becomes ready to see them. But growth came with a price. Daniel started feeling alone. His friends no longer understood him. They talked about temporary pleasures. Daniel thought about permanent freedom. For the first time, Daniel realized something painful but necessary. Not everyone is meant to understand your transformation while it is happening. Some people only understand success after it becomes visible. Then one night, Daniel saw something clearly. Rich people were not special. They had simply learned rules that others never learned. Rules about ownership, rules about patience, rules about control. And Daniel knew he was standing at the edge of a new life. But stepping forward would require something most people never find: courage. Because what he was about to do next would either change everything forever or break him completely. The choice was finally his. Daniel sat alone in his small room that night, staring at the notebook in his hands. Every page was filled with ideas, observations, and plans. But one terrifying truth stared back at him. Knowledge alone had changed nothing. His bank account was still empty. His life was still the same. And for the first time, doubt began to whisper in his mind. He asked himself a question that most people are too afraid to ask. What if I fail? Not just fail quietly, but fail completely. Lose his savings, lose his stability, lose the little security he had left. The fear was real, heavy, suffocating. The next morning at work, Daniel watched the office owners walk past him again, calm, relaxed, untouchable. And suddenly, he understood something deeper than ever before. These people were not fearless. They had simply faced fear and walked through it. That realization hit him hard. Fear was not the enemy. Fear was the doorway. And on the other side of that doorway was everything he wanted. For weeks, Daniel had been studying a small business opportunity. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't impressive, but it was real. It had potential. And it required one thing Daniel had never risked before: his money. It wasn't much, just a few $1,000s he had painfully saved over months. To most people, it was a small amount, but to Daniel, it was everything. It was his safety, his protection, his last line of defense against uncertainty. His hands trembled as he stared at the screen. One decision, one click, and his life would move in a completely different direction. His mind screamed at him to stop, to stay safe, to stay where he was, because safety feels comfortable, safety feels logical. But Daniel had learned something dangerous. Safety also keeps you trapped, forever. He closed his eyes. His heart was racing. Every fear he had ever known came rushing into that moment. Fear of losing, fear of regret, fear of looking stupid, fear of proving everyone right. And then he remembered something: the businessman's voice, calm, certain, clear. Rich people don't work for money. They build things that make money work for them. Daniel opened his eyes. His fear was still there, but something else had appeared beside it. Courage, not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. He clicked the button. In that moment, nothing around him changed. The room was the same, the silence was the same. But inside him, everything was different. He had crossed an invisible line, the line that separates observers from creators. Days passed, then weeks, nothing happened, no profit, no success, just silence, and silence is dangerous because silence feeds doubt. His mind began attacking him. You made a mistake. You lost everything. You were stupid to try. Every negative voice grew louder, every fear grew stronger, and Daniel felt himself standing at the edge of collapse. But deep inside, beneath the fear, beneath the doubt, beneath the uncertainty, there was a quiet realization forming. A realization that would change him forever. Because this was the moment where most people turn back. Most people quit. Most people accept defeat. But Daniel was different. He had already decided. There was no going back, only forward. The night was silent. Daniel sat alone, staring at the ceiling. His phone lay beside him, no notifications. No validation, no guarantee that his risk would ever pay off. This was the invisible phase nobody talks about. The phase where dreams either die quietly or turn into reality. His mind began replaying every moment of his past, every insult, every doubt, every person who told him to stay realistic. Every moment he felt small, weak, powerless. Those memories didn't break him anymore, they fueled him because Daniel understood something now. The real battle was never outside, it was always inside. The war between fear and belief. Then suddenly his phone vibrated. Daniel froze. His heart began pounding. Slowly he picked up the phone. His hands weren't shaking anymore. He had trained himself to stay calm. But what he saw next changed everything. It wasn't just profit, it was momentum, real, measurable, growing. For the first time in his life, money had arrived without him trading his time for it. He had escaped the oldest trap in existence. He didn't celebrate, he didn't shout, he just sat there, in silence. Because this wasn't excitement, this was transformation. In that moment, Daniel realized the truth. Rich people don't become rich when they make money. They become rich when they stop depending on money to survive. Weeks later, everything looked different. The same city, the same streets, but Daniel was no longer controlled by them. He moved differently, thought differently, existed differently. One evening, he walked past the building where he once stood as a security guard. He saw the same uniform, the same tired posture, the same invisible prison, and for a moment, time stood still, because he remembered exactly how it felt, the helplessness, the waiting, the silent fear of being stuck forever, and he realized something painful. Most of them would never escape, not because they couldn't, but because they would never see. At that moment, Daniel understood the final truth. Wealth is not created by opportunity. Opportunity exists everywhere. Wealth is created by perception, by seeing what others ignore, by acting when others hesitate. The world had not changed. The system had not changed. Daniel had changed. And when you change, the entire game changes with you. He was no longer chasing freedom. He had built it quietly, patiently, step by step, while the world was distracted. And standing there, calm and untouchable, Daniel realized something that most people never understand. The difference is identity. Because in the end, rich people don't have access to a different world. They simply become the version of themselves that deserves it.